Right, so have you seen those fall photos where you're just not sure how on earth someone was able to capture such a vibrant photo? So today I'll go over how to create vibrant fall photos in Lightroom, just so you can accurately depict the photos that you're so awed by out there in nature, but feel like you aren't able to capture the vibrancy that you want to see when you bring them back and edit them. So I started photography about a year ago, and living in Pennsylvania, I think one of the things that I was most looking forward to was fall photography. There are just so many forests here, and that's one of the things that Pennsylvania does have, even if it doesn't have like grand epic vistas or mountains, or a lot of them at least. So when fall came around, I decided to go out and take as many fall photos as I wanted, but the problem was that whenever I came back and edited it, it didn't look as vibrant as I really wanted. It didn't look nearly as beautiful as I had seen it in the field. So I started to explore a little bit and realized that there were certain things that I could do to make sure my photos were as vibrant as possible. I didn't want to oversaturate the photo and just make it look like a blob of color, but I also didn't want to leave any of the leaves muted out, right? I wanted to enhance their color as much as possible to navigate the fine line between realistic and enhanced versus unrealistic. So to prevent you all from having to go through the trouble that I had to, I'm going to be sharing the one big tool that you can use in Lightroom to transform your images, and then how to use it effectively and when to use it more appropriately, as well as other tools that you can use with it to make sure you can get as much as you can out of those fall photos. So let's start with this photo over here. The colors are already pretty amazing, and you can see that the leaves aren't necessarily muted, but I want to be able to get a lot more out of it. So the tool that I'm going to share with you is the calibration tool, which is right over here. So let's just see what it actually does. Just moving the slider, I can already see the gorgeous pop of yellow coming out, and then moving the saturation a little bit, it just makes it all glow. So if you look at before and after, you can see how much of a difference it has made to the leaves. It doesn't really impact a lot of the other parts that I don't want it to, right? I don't want the color of the branches to change. I don't want the color of the background leaves to change. I want this nice pop of yellow orange to appear in my photos. Let's move on to this image now. And so in this image, there's a lot of green, a lot of orange, a lot of yellow mixed in together, but I still want to make the fall colors, which are the yellow oranges, pop out more. And so let's go again with that slider. As you can see, I can take it all the way. It might become a little bit unrealistic, so let's keep it a little bit lower. Let's see what saturation does. Tiny bit, not so much. But you can easily see, like, before and after, the effects are drastic. And it doesn't look unrealistic, right? You can still see the other colors within the photo. You can still see the greens. You can still see the color of the bark, etc. It looks like something you could hang above your bed on a master bedroom wall. Let's look at this one more image, and here, I really wanted to focus in on the tree. And so let's just go do what we were doing before. We can see that as we go further up on the hue, it becomes a lot more vibrant. Let's change the saturation a little bit. And right there, you can see it automatically made everything much more vibrant. You can see a little bit in the rocks as well that the color has become a little bit more blue. And you could change that if you wanted to, reduce the blues a little bit in the image. But yeah, it's really up to you whether or not you like that extra hue of the blue or not. Just that subtle change has made such a big difference to this image. So the question you might ask is, why can't I just do the same things with my HSL slider? So let's take a look at that. Let's go back to the first image, reset everything, and let's try and work with the HSL sliders to kind of create that effect. So we wanted a little bit more of yellow, a little bit more orange, and then we want to up the orangeness. You can probably see it's somewhat similar to the other photo where I just moved the calibration slider, but I had to move a lot more, and I had to know what I was trying to go for. So I had to work on different sliders together to kind of create a similar effect that I had wanted before. So what is calibration even doing? Everyone sees red a little bit differently. Everyone sees blue and green a little bit differently. You can think cameras themselves also see these colors differently. And so when you hear someone say, oh, I really like the profile of this camera or this other camera, it usually means that camera has been calibrated a little bit differently, and so the colors and the hues look a little bit different than in other cameras. So every pixel is made up of red, green, and blue. So what the calibration allows you to do is pick the RGB colors and change the amount in all the different pixels. Unlike varying HSL, where you control the exact color. So let's say you see red on the screen, moving the HSL slider left to right will change the red that you see on the screen. It won't change any of the other colors. Whereas with the calibration tool, you actually change all the pixels which have any red in them. Let's look at this color wheel, for example. So if I change the hue for the red, you can see that most of the colors, or all the colors, are impacted, and you get a little bit more orange. Moving to the other side, we see that the colors start to become a little bit more magenta-ish. Similarly with the green, moving it more towards teal, we see that all the colors are impacted, not just the green ones. Now let's see what happens when we try and do the same thing with the hue HSL sliders. If I change red, for example, we can see it's impacting only one of the colors here. Similarly, if we try and work with the orange, it's impacting maybe 1, 2, or 3 of the different portions, but it's not impacting any of the blue or the green that we see in this color wheel. It's very limited to the very specific colors that we see on the screen. And so the goal is to start off with the calibration sliders and then move towards using the more localized approach for any corrections you might need to make. But let's take a look at some of the other photos that I found a little bit more tricky to just fix or enhance with the calibration and see what we can do. This image was a focus in on the tree in the back. I really like the framing of the side trees and the out of focus leaves in the front as well. So let's see if we can make the back leaves pop a little bit. So as you can see, once I'm doing that, I'm also changing the leaves in the front. I might not necessarily want to do that. I might not want them to be less green. If I try and move the green hue slider for the calibration, I can see that the tree in the back is also changing, which I don't necessarily want. Now that we've set the hue for the calibration, let's move over to more localized adjustment, right? I want more of the green back in the leaf in the front. So you can see the tree in the back is not being affected at all, but I'm getting a little bit more green back in the leaves in the front. So just using 2 sliders, I was able to get the type of image that I wanted. I knew I wanted to edit and enhance the tree in the back, but I also knew that there were different red tones within the other parts of the image that might be impacted, and so I used the more localized HSL sliders to bring it back. So this is an image that I recently took, and it was an amazing day. The fog was lasting forever, and I really could just take my telescopic lens and focus in on those trees out there on the mountains. But the problem with this is that sunlight is shining on all the leaves. So just using the calibration tool might not be as effective as I wanted to. So let's change the hue for the red. Everything becomes more of this green yellowy color, and it really loses the vibrancy of all the other different colors. I want a little bit more color separation. I don't want it to just be green and yellow. So let's reduce that a little bit. Let's see what happens when I change any of the other sliders for calibration. So if I change the hue for the green, I see that I get back a lot of the color separation that I wanted, but it might not be as big of a difference. Yeah, see, before and after, you don't really see any difference. So I basically undone what I did with the red, so I don't want to do that. Let's see, blue. Yeah, blue has a very small range of work, and it just casts everything in the same color, so I won't touch that. Let's move to more localized. So I really want the greens to come out more. These trees that are dark green, I really want them to come out more. So let's see if I can change the hue for them. All right, so everything changes with it. Let's see if I can just enhance the greens to make them more green. So let's see if I can move some of the yellows to the green. Okay, so moving the orange a little bit, I can get some of the color separation back from the leaves that have turned a little bit too green from the orange, or too yellowish with the orange. So I'll recover some of the orange and red, but then I don't like how green and yellowy tinge there is here. So let's reduce some of the saturation of the yellow, and there we go. Yeah, let's see, before, after. Yeah, I recovered a lot more of the dark green that I really wanted, and I reduced the yellow tones overall in the image. If I turn off both of these, I get an image that I like, but an image that could be improved. So just by, again, turning on the calibration, it turns into kind of this like single tone of yellow and greens. And so moving to the HSL, if I can find it, oh, right here. Let's turn that back on, and we automatically recover a lot of the dark greens, which have more blue tones in them. And yeah, it just makes for a much more beautiful, color separated fall vibe photo. So let's try and see what are the effects on the color wheel based on the effects we put for this image. So now by synchronizing, I basically applied all the calibration and HSL effects to this color wheel. So we can see it haven't changed much, but let's turn them on and off. So this is the original color wheel. Adjusting the calibration, we can automatically see we've adjusted the red a little bit to make it a little bit more orangey. And then with the HSL, we've recovered some of the greens before. So before the greens were a little bit more orangey and yellow, we've recovered some of the greens there. We've also recovered some of the reds, right? So we haven't left the reds like they were before when they were all just orange. We've been able to recover the color separation of the reds as well. Calibration tool is really powerful, and I've found it to be the best way to create those gorgeous images. But usually just using the calibration slider might not be enough. It's great when you want to take photos that have only one color that you want to enhance. But as you can see from other fall photos that have multiple ranges of color, you might have to also then venture into using the HSL as well. What I found is for the images, like the first 3 that I showed, a lot of the other colors are kind of darker, deeper blues, and more shadowy, and so they're a lot more muted, and so just enhancing using the calibration slider works really well. But let me know if you've also tried this, or if you end up trying it and find it really useful. I hope this prepares you in advance for next fall season that you venture out into. But remember that calibration is global, whereas HSL is more local for the different colors involved. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe down below, and I hope to see you next time.